If you'd come and told me a second later, I'd have been asleep. Don't blame you. You can have one of them though. It should be on. New batteries, courtesy of Pulborough Tesco's.
Ah, thank you very much. Yeah, it works today, that's good.
It's always a bonus. It saves me just giving you mine and then buggering off out the ring, really. Never mind. Okay, well, our first engine in the parade is the Man Wagon, owned by Mr. Lyons. Rare and unusual machine that, built in Yorkshire, but an overtight wagon with a chain down to the rear axle. And that's what I got a Sentinel, the undertight wagon. So if you've been paying attention when the models went round, you'll know it's an undertight wagon because the engine's underneath the chassis. That's an S4, shaft drive, so very similar to a modern lorry, and can cruise comfortably at maybe 45 mile an hour, which is quite impressive for a machine that age. That one's in the livery of the Gaslight and Coke Company. And the little man on the front is known as Mr. Firm. You try saying that when you ain't got your teeth in. Now third up we have one of our road rollers. This is a Wallace and Stevens Advance in the livery of the Royal Engineers. So a traditional steamroller, of which you'll see a few in a little while, had a bad fault when it came to tarmac. They have to stop between forwards and reverse, and that will give you 3 little holes in your road, which isn't very good. So Wallace came up with a flywheel-less steamroller like this, and that can actually do a quick reverse, forward to reverse, almost instantly. Now we've got a lovely Fowler traction engine, single cylinder, known as Edna. Most engines you'll see here have got a name. Quite often it's a name they had when they were working, or one that's been attached by an owner at one time or another. You don't get many people give their tractors and cars names, although of course a few of them do. Fowler engines of course were built in Leeds, and this one's recently reappeared on the scene after an extensive rebuild. If any of you have lost a clip-on umbrella, we've just had one handed in as a lost property, and it's here in the commentary box. So if you're missing an umbrella and you're obviously planning ahead, I think you were going to need one of them, then it's over here in the commentary box. Lovely big barrel engine now. Yes, everywhere you go I'd pop up like a bad penny, Terry. This is Terry Maynard's very smart barrel. Spent its working life in New Zealand, not in Australia as published in some unreliable sources, and it was repatriated via Australia in the early 70s. It then spent a number of years off the road for a prospective rebuild, which then for various reasons didn't happen, and eventually it ended up with Terry, who along with his helpers has given it the classic touch, the finished job, a very, very impressive engine, and it's enjoying its second year of rallying. And this is followed by the Wallace oil bath tractor, owned by Mr. Casey, a fellow Emmerdale fan, and as an engine he's done an awful lot of work on, as well as doing work on other people's engines. And an interesting point on these engines is you can't see any of the motion work. It's all actually running in an oil bath, as the name would suggest. and that's followed by a Burrell gold medal tractor. So at the trials, all the manufacturers entered their steam tractors, and Burrell's won the gold medal and never want to miss out on a bit of publicity. They went on to name them the gold medal tractor. The steam tractor's not an agricultural machine. You wouldn't go ploughing with a machine like this. It's actually a light haulage engine. It would have worked extracting and moving perhaps timber, or removal vans with furniture or other goods. Jim Hatfield's big Sentinel DG6 now, a wagon I remember well in East Anglia when it was owned, along with many others, by Edgar Schoen and driven by Dan Doncaster. It was actually the first mobile cement mixer. Unfortunately, the cement mixer, I believe, was removed and put onto a diesel lorry. And this wagon has just been halfway to Paris under its own steam. Now, I did ask why it didn't go all the way to Paris, but it went to a rally halfway to Paris for some unpronounceable name. I'm not even going to attempt it. But there's an engine that's still getting about and travelling long distances under its own steam. Lovely Foden wagon now, so you've got the contrast between the undertype wagon, the Sentinel with the vertical boiler in the front and the engine down under the chassis. Fodens are overtype, so like the standard traction engine, you've got your boiler with your engine and crankshaft on top. You see the big change eyes here down to the rear axle, and this one's actually fitted with a tipping body, so you can tip the body one way or the other. Another one of our Burrell tractors now. It's very rare to get a Burrell tractor at a rally in East Anglia, but you come down this way and they're all over the place. This is a local engine, been in the area for many years. It's owned by the Tinkers Park collection. It was started by Claude Jessett, and it's another nice example of a Burrell haulage tractor, a gold medal tractor. Remember, they cashed in on that. And this is followed by Jupiter, another engine from the Claude Jessett collection at Tinkers Park, and this is actually a timber tractor, so it's not a steam wagon, although the engine and the boiler are in common perhaps with the ordinary Sentinel wagons, which we've had two round already. But this is for winching and hauling. You can see it's got the winch rollers down here between the front wheels. It's got a big winch powered by its own separate steam engine down under the back, and the big land anchor at the back, so that you can pull trees over or winch things out of ditches when it's all gone a bit wrong. But a very versatile tool. So the first of our Aveling rollers now. Now Aveling and Porter built more steam rollers than every other manufacturer combined. And Aveling rollers always have a horse on the front. There's a good reason for that, and if you catch me after the parade I'll tell you why. This is a nice roller. It's a compound with overhead valves, and it's also fitted with a scarifier. So as the roller comes round, if you look down on the rear wheel, you'll see a contraption there with a windy wheel on it, and that is your scarifier. And what that does, you wind the wheel and you lower the tines into the road surface and tear it up. Now you might think that's not perhaps the brightest of ideas, but in the days before tarmac roads, they were made of hogging and they're water bound, and the traffic used to break the road surface up. So you came along with your steam roller, drop your scarifier into the road surface, tore it up, then you were a steamroller driver, so then you sat on the roller and rolled a bag and had a cup of tea, while the roadmen levelled the road out, filled up any low points, chucked out any sharp stones that might upset a horse, and then you rolled it flat again. One thing I will say, if you've got a scarifier and it's got the tines in it, do make sure you keep the windy wheel tied up, unlike a friend of mine who made a marvellous job of scarifying Saffron High Street, much to the disgust of the local constabulary, who escorted him out of town and dumped him in a lay-by. Another Sentinel wagon now. This is the Sentinel Super. It's well known, been at rallies for many, many years, owned and operated by HMS Sultan down at Gosport. And the Super was the second model of Sentinels to come in. They started with the Standard, which was a very rudimentary affair with solid tyres and no windscreens, and I'm actually told my great-granddad had a Sentinel Standard, unsurprisingly it hasn't survived. Later on, they became a bit more refined. You've got your windscreens, you've got your pneumatic tyres, a little bit more turn of speed. Still chain drive for the rear end though, and there's quite a few S-type or Super Sentinels surviving. Next is Southern Queen, or Nippy Roller as it would be called in my neck of the woods. It's actually a steam tractor that then worked as a steamroller for Taylor Brothers of Wimbish. Taylor's then part-exchanged it for a steam tractor called, that went on to be called Lucy Bay. And Southern Queen's another engine from Tinkers Park, another engine in that collection, running as a showman's. And it's been down this way for many, many years. It did return to Essex briefly for the Taylor Brothers reunion, but the least said about that the better. But just to say, they haven't actually mended the house yet. Well, bang goes the neighbourhood, the Fowler's turned up. So this is the Great North. It's a crane engine when it's got its crane on, but it hasn't today. And because it's a lovely hot day, they've taken the lid off as well. Either that or they went under the low bridge on the way here. But it's not too bent. Anyway, it's an engine from the Searle family collection in Horsham. They pop up all over the place, so I don't make a special trip all this way down here just to see there. So that's followed by His Majesty, the Burrell crane engine, this one. Actually worked for many years for Higgies of Richmond. I was in Richmond the other day, there's not much to recommend it, but they did have some nice engines. It's another engine that's been owned for many years by the Searle family from Horsham. So we've got a lovely lineup of engines here in the arena this Sunday afternoon, and a beautiful day for it. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. It takes a fair bit of work to put these engines on the road and get them about, as I know to my cost and misery. We've just got a steam ticket on our own engine for the first time in 7 years. We've had a completely rebuilt boiler, and then we've cobbled everything else back together to make the wheels go round. And I had the pleasure of driving it across the yard last week, and I haven't seen it since. But never mind, all being well, that's going to be at Wheaton next weekend.
Well, I think you'll all notice that as a commentator that most of the steam engines seem to aim for us. Here comes another one. You've really got to pay attention. Somebody asked me earlier, why do you have a red flag? Is that something to do with the Red Flag Act when they used to have to walk in front of the traction engines? I'm like, no. It's so the owners know where I am. And they don't run me over. Arthur, you need one. Actually, you're hiding in the commentary box.
Well, I'm also tall and ugly, so I don't tend to get run into.
I'm just short and fat. I don't think they can see me.
Tell you, it's no weather for fat men at the moment. I'm looking forward to a bit of snow.
There's a nice breeze though, isn't there? So that's alright.
We did actually have hail at Weeding one year. It was all sat in the bunkers, all white.
I bet it looked like a Christmas card.
Yeah, very mucky Christmas card. So we've been joined by a real special engine now. This is the Paul Ransley's Fowler single cylinder ploughing engine, the Mistress. An engine that he reconstructed from a very small pile of parts. I was lucky enough to attend a talk by the owner earlier in the year where he went through just how little of the engine he actually had to begin with, and I think that made me realise even more what an achievement it was. It's a tank steered engine, this one, so you'll see the steersman stood in the back. He's having to turn the wheel the opposite way to the direction of travel, and the steering shaft also has a brake on it to stop it pinging you off the side of the engine, because obviously nobody wants to be pinged off the side of the engine. And obviously that's a ploughing engine, so it would have worked with its sister engine as one of a pair, pulling the plough backwards and forwards across the ground. So a lovely early ploughing engine, that one. And that's followed by the Rambler, which is a Garrett showman's tractor. So the type of engine would have been used on travelling showman, perhaps for pulling living vans, side stalls and so on. Not quite got the capacity of its larger showman's road locomotive, but a nice engine nonetheless. Well, I said earlier, Aveling's built more rollers than every other manufacturer, but most other manufacturers had a go. And this is the Marshall, known as Omon. They were a much like their agricultural engines, they were rugged, relatively straightforward, simple, easy to work on, and that one's owned by the Schaffer family.
Well, we're having a bit of steering trouble coming into the arena over here. Like I said, I think they aim for us sometimes. It's a beautiful Burrell steamroller, this one here. Made in 1924. And Burrells were particularly good at making traction engines, but here's a fine example of an 8-ton steamroller. I don't think the crew members on it are the owners. I know they're not. They're doing a fine job though.
We're doing very well. They only nearly hit you. They didn't nearly hit me.
They only nearly hit me twice.
And that's a roller that actually worked locally and was based for its whole commercial life in Horsham.
one last week.
Another one of our Evelyn rollers now, Mr. Lux Sestria. And that's another engine fitted with a scarifier as well.